Okay, hi, welcome. Let's get started. Today I have the pleasure of having Taylor Tamanka. Did I get that right?
You did,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. I'm sorry. I wanted to get it better. I'm sorry. But Taylor Tamanka, who is online, she is Taylor the Attorney, and I like that. I like that moniker. She's here today to help us with our foundational, our starting place for our businesses. And Taylor works with entrepreneurs who, like us, are getting started and need some direction on how to literally how to get started. So thank you for coming and joining us, Taylor.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, why don't you tell us about yourself and tell us how you can serve this community of women who are utilizing largely spaces that they own or spaces that they will soon identify and turn them into thriving, wildly successful hospitality businesses.
That's right.
Right.
Absolutely. So I am Taylor, the attorney, and I have been practicing law in the state of Texas for 8 years now. I primarily started off doing family law, estate planning, and have switched into doing more transactional work, doing prenuptials, LLC setups, things related to your estate planning, business succession planning, things like that. So I have gotten into this kind of realm slowly, but just launched my creative entrepreneurs platform, Taylor the Attorney, to help small business owners because there is so much to learn. I myself have owned my own law firm with my husband for the last 5 years now. So I'm also a small business owner myself. And I can tell you, even from going to law school, there is so much out there about protecting yourself and intellectual property and rules and regulations and things that you would just never expect to have to know about. Even in law school, I didn't learn these things. I learned them from doing it for 5 years.
Right. I tell people all the time when they talk about law school, I'm like, you won't learn any laws. So, what you really will do is you'll read a lot and you'll come out knowing how to do some research and not a whole lot more than that.
Yep. Yep. And then you end up specializing in something and do that for typically the rest of your life, and you forget everything else about the law.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. And well, now that we've covered that, where should a burgeoning hospitality host start with their business? How should they start to set it up?
So, the very first step in setting up your business is deciding what business entity to choose.
Okay.
I typically tell all of my clients to choose an LLC because for their size and their goals, um, at this time, it's going to be better for tax reasons. It's going to be easier to set up. You're not going to have the rules and regulations that you do with a corporation. And you're also not going to be double taxed like you would in a corporation because the corporation is taxed once and then you're taxed on your salary personally. So, want to
Right.
avoid that. Hopes and dreams that you can franchise. And at that point, maybe look into turning it into a corporation. And you can always switch over and become something later if you would like. But an LLC is easy to set up. It is the best for your taxes. It is going to flow through to your personal income return. You just fill out a schedule, I believe Schedule K. Don't quote me on that. I have a CPA. Um, but it's not taxed through your LLC itself. It's much easier to do. And it's overall going to protect you fully. Pretty much the same as a corporation. A corporation is set up differently, but it has the same structure of liability protection.
Yeah.
So,
So,
um,
so do we need an LLC or should does everybody need one? I guess that's kind of the question. And when do you need it?
yeah, great question. I think it depends specifically on your business type. I know that a lot of these ladies are doing Airbnb rentals. So for those situations, I would say yes, absolutely. Personally, I would say even if it is a hobby, I would still set up an LLC. Because so in the state of Texas, it's $300 to set up an LLC with the state. So is $300 worth someone coming into your home and breaking their leg and suing you?
Right. Yeah,
I personally, it's not worth it to me.
you're right. Spend the
Uh,
money.
so I think in that situation, it is because you're having other people come onto your property and you never know what could happen. And you have to treat people as they are, just because they have, a disability or they're blind or, and they misstep. Like that is not a reason for, casting liability elsewhere. So you were stuck with that person. So in those situations, yes. Now, if you're at home making hats for people, I mean, probably not because you're not incurring liability. I mean, hopefully, your hats are clean. I can't think of any reason a hat would hurt anyone.
At risk, right?
But yeah, for this community, I would highly suggest getting an LLC. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. We always have the question about a registered business name. Do you need to have your LLC in a registered business name? Should you put it in your personal name? Does it matter? How do you feel about that?
Um, Registered. So in Texas, we don't have register. I mean, you can pre-register your name with the state to then later take it on as the LLC's name,
Yeah.
but we don't have a pre-registration requirement. A lot of people do believe that you have to set up a DBA, a doing business as, and that in a way registers your name, but multiple people are allowed to have the same DBA name. Whereas if you have your LLC fully registered as that business name, only one person in your state can register as that LLC name.
Right.
So, and that's
They vary from state to state and you have to check, depending on where you are, you have to check and see whether that's a requirement. Because some states require that before you even have the LLC, that you have to have a license and you have to have permits and those kinds of things. So you've got to be specific and check the regulations for your state because it's not the same everywhere. Sadly,
absolutely
in a much more complicated way than it needs to be, it's not the same everywhere.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I've even heard of someone in California once told me that she had to register the business name, like post it into a newspaper for some reason.
Yeah, you have to give notice. I've seen that before.
Yeah. So absolutely, it's very, very specific. Also, another thing that is very important that is also a lot of the time county specific are going to be permits and licensing. So specifically here where I live in Travis County, there is a required permit that you have to have in order to do short-term rentals. You can't just go out and have your house automatically be deemed acceptable by the county. And if you do, you are going to be hit with huge taxes.
Do they come out and do an inspection? Because some places you have to have the city or the municipality come out and inspect. Do you guys have that?
I bet that is part of the permit process. I've not myself applied for a permit. I've just looked into getting this permit. But I bet I would not doubt that it would be some sort of inspection, at least county to county. I would look into that because I would think that if you're going to have these businesses out here permitted, you would need to know that at least the business is like habitable. It's not, cave in on someone. It doesn't need to be foreclosed on, things like that, surely. So yeah, that very well may be a requirement.
Okay. How about a bank account? Do we need a business bank account? Can we use our personal bank account? I know the answer to this, but let's just go there and talk about the reasons why you should not use your personal bank account.
Yes. And I mean, I admit, even as an attorney and starting Taylor the Attorney, that I did this myself at first. And I totally understand. It's just such a hassle to go to the bank and have to go inside and set up an account.
Right. Going inside the bank, who does that anymore, right? We didn't do that for 2 years. So now going in feels really crazy.
I know, right? But there are so many reasons that you should make the effort to go inside and do this bank account. So I like to tell people that like your LLC is like a house and your things like that are like the furniture. And we need to house everything. Like you wouldn't put a piece of furniture outside on your lawn. It would get ruined, right? So house everything under your LLC because the liability protection only flows down through your LLC. So if your personal bank account is over here and you have a couch outside in the front lawn and it's getting rained on, then
it's not inside your house.
Right? Yeah. Right. Someone could come and take that couch, just like, someone could come and sue you, and then your personal bank account and assets are going to be on the line instead of just what's in your business bank account. And if that's just like $1,000, then that's $1,000 and that's all they get. Can't pinch more out of a turnip that's not there, right? So, and your business may go bankrupt, but you personally would not go bankrupt. And, hopefully you also have insurance and everything to help protect you from bankruptcy. But your personal assets are always going to be first up on the line to be taken, not insurance. So, got to protect them.
Right. So put your stuff inside the house. Now, when you go and get that bank account, you are going to need to take in your LLC papers, at least in Illinois. So you'll have to have them filed with, for us, it's the state. You'll have to have a copy of that. You may have to have your operating agreement, and you'll need all of that to establish a business bank account. And it really functions just like a regular checking account. It's just separate from your personal. That's the most important part of it. Plus, you might get a debit card, and when you're making those purchases, you're buying that toilet paper and you're buying coffee. You're going to get that record at that point with your credit card statement. So that's good too.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's also really great, especially if you are in the industry that these ladies are in. If you want to buy up more houses and seek financing and all of this stuff, it's also really great to go inside that bank and make a really like a personal connection with your banker and have one person do everything for you.
Right.
It's also going to help when you come knocking for loans and, say, hey, I really want this new pretty house.
Remember me?
Like, well, we know you and you've been making payments on time or whatever. You're a good customer. So yes, I'm going to give this to you.
Right. Good. That's a good point. Because you may, and even, let's see, for those that are going to do arbitrage, it's going to be a good presentation when you approach a landlord to let them know that, yes, you are a company. Yes, you do have an LLC. You're not just, you didn't just wake up this morning and decide to do this. Yes, you've got your bank account, you've got your ducks in a row. And that's why you should let me do an Airbnb scenario in your space. Much more compelling than, hey, I just want to re-rent your space. I hope it works out for both of us. That's not compelling. Not the way. Okay, what else is there? Is there more that we should do?
Well, you mentioned a company agreement, and I highly suggest doing that, especially if you are, going into business with multiple people, because friendships take a turn for the worst, unfortunately, sometimes, and your business does not need to go down because of it. And there are certain provisions that you can put in there, like buy-sell agreements, so that if a partner leaves, you automatically have to buy their shares, so they can't just sell them to a random person that's now an owner of your business. There are certain things that you do need to include in there, specifically if you have multiple people.
Okay,
I
set up a business
2 weeks ago.
Are you talking about a separate partnership agreement, or are you talking about making sure that those members are in the LLC?
I'm talking about the company agreement itself, like the operating agreement.
Okay. Yep.
Different things, different states.
It's something different.
Yeah. Sorry. The Texas, it's called an operating agreement or company agreement. Yes. And it lays out how essentially the internal operations and management structure of your organization is laid out. So for single person LLCs, I don't know if it's worth the money to spend someone to come up with that for you, because by default, if you do not have one, then the Texas Business Code applies. So there's still something that you still have to follow and is there protecting you structurally, but it's very important to have in place if you have multiple members. And it can also be important to have in there, even if your spouse is your partner.
Even if they're family members. Yeah.
Yes.
Especially
if they're family members.
Right. We heard those horror stories. Okay. Anything more?
I would say, so in Texas, this is going to be different in every single state, but in Texas, property is community property that is acquired or created during marriage. So if you start an LLC while you were married, then technically your spouse owns 50% of it. Even if you are the only spouse that's doing this on, Airbnb or, going and doing the bank accounts and decorating and cleaning the houses, they still own 50% of it and they can still claim that in a divorce. So
That's a
There
good
are
one.
also, I insert buy sell provisions in there for if you get a divorce and your spouse has to sell back to you. Things like that. There can be spousal consents within that that says that this is your separate property. If you can get your spouse to agree to that. And if
Right.
you were not married, then I would highly suggest getting a prenuptial agreement to make that your separate property, and keep all of the income that you generate as your separate property as well.
Okay.
But
So if you're not married, but you're in a relationship and yeah, you wanna keep your business your
yeah,
business. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
the contract is unfortunately a lot more sturdier and thicker than blood, unfortunately.
And love sometimes.
And love. I was going to say, hopefully, you're not marrying your own blood. That didn't make sense. Love.
Right. Right. Okay. There are, I've gotten questions on the difference between an LLC and an S corp. And is there one, well, first of all, please tell us the difference and then let us know your opinion on one over the other for an Airbnb type business. One that has 1 to 2 properties, because we're all kind of beginners here.
Cool. So I would start off as an LLC. So the difference between the two is that an LLC is a business structure entity. It is a registered business with the state of Texas or whatever state you are in. But the S corp is actually a tax designation. So you can make this designation if you are a few different types of business entity registered with the state. So not only the LLC, I believe also maybe partnerships, also limited partnerships, things like that
Mhm.
can register for this as well. But so it is a tax designation and it helps in certain situations. I would say if you were first starting off to just maintain the LLC designation. The reason being is that you really need a steady payroll coming in. And when I say payroll, I don't necessarily mean like that you're being paid every month. I mean that you are able to take like just for example, like a $5,000 check every month. Like that is your salary, that is your pay that you are taking from the company. If when you reach that point, that is when it's going to really help you to be an S corp because you are going to be taxed on only a limited portion of what you take out rather than the whole portion, if that makes any sense.
No,
Uh,
that makes sense. So as we start, we'll start with an LLC, and then once we get consistent income and we're paying ourselves a livable wage, then that's the time to consider. And maybe you don't change it, but maybe you do. It depends on your tax profile. This is a CPA question in my mind.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, and send people to a CPA because it is literally a tax form, not like a 5 to 7 page tax form, and they need financial information from you as well to convert your entity and make sure you're not committing fraud or anything shady is going on. So it is absolutely a CPA question for your specific business.
right. Okay. Okay. Well, so now we've got our name. Now, oh, here's the question. If our state requires us to register the business name, should we use a different name for our actual listing, or does it matter, or do they have to be the same?
No, I don't think they have to be the same. I think if you want to use like um a specific name as your brand or your overall brand or whatever and use that, I would say to do that from a marketing perspective
Yes.
because there's no legal reason why you can't.
Right. 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 That's what I tell people. I'm, your listing might be called, the Sunnyside, Suite or something, but you don't have to name your LLC the same thing. So
Exactly.
there
Right.
was some confusion about that, I think, in the community.
That's
Let's see.
a fair question. Like, so in the state of Texas, we are required to add on like the company designation at the end of our business name. So Taylor the Attorney is Taylor the Attorney PLLC. Um,
Okay.
so I also am filing for an assumed name certificate, which is essentially like a DBA, um, to use just Taylor the Attorney on marketing and business cards and things like that, because that is more of like my brand rather than the name that I'm going to have on legal filings.
Okay. So your DBA will be Taylor the Attorney. That's it. You don't have
That's
to
it.
have
Yep.
a designation. Okay. I don't know that we have to do it that way in Illinois. I have two separate names, so I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that. But all of this is state specific, so do your research and kind of go with what Taylor has given us kind of as the guideline. But Taylor's not going to go away. She's going to make herself available, hopefully. If anybody has questions or needs help, why don't you tell us how we can best work with you if we're stuck or if we have questions or if we want you to put it together and, email it to us. How does all that work?
Yeah. So Taylor the Attorney is a completely online platform. So it is just www.taylortheattorney.com. Made my name very easy to
Yeah,
find.
no, I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I'm also at Taylor the Attorney on LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Instagram as well. So if you just want to hit me up on Instagram, send me a DM. I'm more than happy to answer some quick questions for you. Or if you actually want me to set this up for you and do it yourself, then you can also just go to the link in my Instagram bio and set up a calendar schedule from there, and we can meet and go through and have a full discovery call and go through your situation with you.
Nice. Okay. And so what exact services would you like us to contact you for?
I can set up your entire LLC. So when I say set up your entire LLC, I mean that I submit the certificate of formation with your state registered office. Then I also have you I set up your EIN with the federal government. So you're set up for federal taxes. And then I also write your company agreement where we would insert, buy sell provisions if we needed to,
Nice.
and things like that. So you are fully set up to then go out into the world and
Host guest. Yeah, hang out your hospitality shingle. Fantastic.
uh,
So, I heard through the grapevine that you were thinking about doing some hosting yourself. Want to tell us about that?
yes. Yes. So living in Austin, it is one of the I think highest growing cities for things like Airbnb, short-term rentals. And so my husband and I are actually in the process of looking for property to do this very same thing that you guys are doing. So I've looked into all of this personally, done my own personal research, and it's totally doable, you guys. I just think a lot of it will take just commitment and dedication and sticking with it, and having grit, because sometimes things don't work out initially.